Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, we'll be talking about lexical tokens in Java. So the agenda for today's video is we'll understand what are lexical tokens and look at various lexical tokens like the identifiers, the keywords, separators and operators, literals, white space and comments. So without wasting time, let's get started. So here we have a very simple program, and what we have done is we have declared the variable of type integer and then we call it I, right? And also we have initialized it with the value of 23, right? Now this program is existing simply as a source code, right? And it may look like it has some kind of a structure, but for the computer it is simply the meaningless sequence of characters, right? Or to simply put, it is just the text. So what we do is pass this source code to the compiler, right? And what the compiler does is, simply divides the text into individual tokens, right? And you may think of the token as compiler trying to figure out what the words are in a program, right? After this step, the tokens are organized into hierarchical structure called the parse tree, and it is like figuring out what the exact grammar is. Then there are many intermediate steps before the Java compiler converts the source code into the bytecode, right? That's the reason when compiler finds that there is a problem in the tokens or the grammar is invalid, the compiler throws the compile time error. All right. So we have seen how the Java compiler converts the source code to the machine code, right? By processing the source code that is written in the form of a sentence and then breaking it into the individual tokens, right? So what are the tokens, right? Or we can think of a token as a low level language elements, right? And there are many token elements like the identifier, the numbers, the operators, special characters, right? And they're used to build the high level constructs like the expressions, the statement, the methods and the classes, right? And we will see them each one by one in our next slides. Now let us look at what is an identifier. So identifier are nothing but the names of your packages, classes, methods, variables, and so on, right? And an identifier consists of a sequence of characters, right? But there are some rules for naming your identifier, right? And we will see them in our next slides. Okay. Now let us look at some identifier rules which are valid, right? So your identifier can be of unlimited length. The second one is that your identifier can start with the letter, a currency sign, or an underscore. And the third one states that we can use a digit, but not at the starting position. And the fourth one states that we can use an underscore at any position. And finally, we can also use currency symbol at any position, right? So now let us look at the invalid identifier rules, right? So first one is we cannot use your reserved keywords, right? And we will see them in our next slides, right? The second one is we cannot use special characters in our identifier name except for the underscore, right? And your third one is your identifier cannot start with the digit, right? So now let us see them all in action. Now let us identify all the valid identifiers in our simple program, right? So the first one which we have is your class name, which is my class. The second one which we have is our main method, right? So main is also an identifier. The third one is your variable name called the number, right? And apart from these three, there are two more like the string class and the variable for the string class called the args, right? So these are your identifiers, right? Now let us look at all the valid rules for naming our identifiers. So your first rule is that your identifier can be of unlimited length. So let us create a variable and give it some random name. So we have this int and then we have this like this. Okay.
So this is your variable with some random length, right? And then we have the second rule, which is your variable can start with a letter. So it can be uppercase and your lowercase. So we have this another variable, we have this ABC, right? And then the another one which is in uppercase ABC. And note that this uppercase and the lowercase variable are different, right? Since Java is case sensitive, right? Then we can also use digit in our variable name. So, but it should not be in the starting position. So we call this cloud 9, right? Then the fourth rule is that we can use underscore at any position, right? So we have this int and then we have, underscore number, right? And the final rule is that your currency symbol can be used at any position, right? So it can be any valid currency like the, suppose we have the yen symbol. So we have this yen. Okay. So let us save this and run this and see which all works and which doesn't work, right? And since all are valid, so our program should work fine. All right. So let us save and run this. So we will compile our program Java C my class dot Java, and then let us run this. So we have this Java my class, and as you can see, we don't have any compilation errors, which means that our program ran successfully. All right. Now let us look at the invalid identifier naming rules. So the first invalid rule is that you cannot use a reserved word as your identifier. So suppose that this is your reserve word, and when you try to save and run this, you will get the compilation error, and we will understand what are reserve words in a later part of the videos. But for now, let us save and run this. So I've saved the program. Now let us run this program. Now let us compile and run this program. So we have Java C my class, right? And as you can see, we have the compilation error, right? So the first rule is verified. Now the second rule is we cannot use special character as a identifier name, right? So we cannot write something like ABC and hashtag, right? Or int xyz at the rate, right? And these both will give the compilation errors, right? So let us save and run this. So we'll compile this and we should have the compilation error. And as you can see, we have this illegal character. All right. So this verifies that we cannot use special character like the hashtag at the rate, right? But only underscore is accepted in our identifier name, as we have seen in our valid identifier rules. All right. Now let us verify the third invalid identifier rule, which is your identifier cannot start with a digit, right? So let me clear this and let us write 9 cloud. All right. So let me save this and run this. All right. So I've saved this. Now let me run this. Now as I compile that program, I should get the compilation error. And as you can see, we have the compilation error. So we have successfully studied what are the valid and the invalid identifier rules.
Now let us understand what are keywords. So keywords are nothing but your reserve words that are predefined in the programming language, right? And cannot be used to denote other entities, right? So it is basically used by the compiler, right? And in Java, they are mostly in lowercase. And if you use them inappropriately, you will get the compilation errors, right? So here on your screen, you can see few of the keywords, right? And it might change further, right? So apart from these keywords, we also have some few reserved literals, right? And we will talk about the literals in later part of the video. And below some reserved literals, we have two keywords like the const and the goto, which are also reserved but not in use currently, right? So now let us see them in action.
So we have already been using some keywords in our program like the class, public, static, right? So these are your keywords, right? And as you know, if you use them inappropriately, we'll get the compilation error. So if I have this int and if I type it, type the variable name as class and try to save and run this, you will get the compilation error since class is a reserved keyword, right? So we'll try and run this program. Now let us run this. So we have this Java my class dot Java, and as you can see, we get the compilation error. All right. And as I've told you that our keywords are mostly lowercase in Java. So if I change this class to uppercase C and I add a double variable and call it double in uppercase, and if I try to save and run this, our program should run successfully. So I've saved this. Now let me run this. So let me compile this. And you can see we don't have any compilation error. Now let me execute it, right? And again, you can see you have successfully executed our my class, right? And one final thing which we need to know about reserved words are that we cannot use reserved literals inappropriately, right? So if I try this int and if I have this null, if I try to save and run this, we'll get the compilation error since null is a reserved literal. So let me run this. So if I compile this, we have the compilation error. All right. So that is it for the reserved words.
Now let us understand what are separators. So separators, also known as punctuators, are tokens that are used to structure our Java program and also aid the compiler in performing the syntax and the semantic analysis of a program, right? And below you can see various separators like the curly brackets, the square brackets, round brackets, semicolon, comma, and so on, right? In our previous videos we wrote many classes, right? And looking at the structure, of the class, we had those curly brackets, and within those curly brackets we wrote the main method. Then again for the method we had this curly brackets, and within those curly brackets we wrote our instruction, right? So in this way we use separators to structure our Java program. Also, separators aid the compiler in performing the syntax and the semantic analysis of a program. So what do we mean by syntax analysis? Like, syntax analysis is nothing but the process of checking your program source code against the grammar of a programming language, right? So that to ensure we have the correct structure. For example, your statement should end with a semicolon. That is nothing but the syntax analysis. Similarly, for the semantic analysis, we mean is, semantic analysis check the logical correctness of a program, right? So what we mean by that is, like checking the operations are performed on appropriate type. And, like we are not adding to Boolean types, right? We can only add to integer types. So that is nothing but your semantic analysis, right? Now let us understand what are operators, right? So operators are symbols that perform specific operation on one, two, or more operands and return a result, right? So there are various mathematical operators like the assignment, arithmetic, relational, and the logical, right? And below you can see all the symbols for all of the operators, right? So we will discuss each of the operators in detail in our future video. Now let us understand what are literals. So a literal is a fixed value that does not need any further calculations in order to be assigned to any variable, right? So example is int number equals to 23, and here 23 is your literal, right? And it is fixed, right? We are not calculating and deriving it, right? It is just the number, right? And we will understand literals using a program, right?
Now let us understand literals with the help of this example. So we have total 6 variables A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? So of those 6, 3 are of integer types while the other 3 are of double type, right? And as you may have noticed, we have assigned the values of 3 and 2 for your variables A and B respectively, right? And for variable C, what we do is, we add the values of variables A and B, right? And similarly for the variable d and e, we have assigned the values 1.2 and 1.3 respectively. And for variable f is the difference of the variable e and d, right? So your variable a, b, d and e are nothing but your literals, right? Why they are literals? Because they already have a value assigned to them. Whereas your variable c and f are not the literals, right? Because we are assigning the value after doing some calculations, right? So this is it for the literals.
Now let us understand what are white spaces. So a white space is a sequence of tabs and space in a Java source file, right? And what it does is, it helps in formatting the source code for better readability, right? And also, white space are sometimes used as a separator, right? And so, differentiate between the two tokens. And we will see that using an example.
Now I have created two files, the one in which I haven't used any white space and the other one in which I have used white spaces. So which one according to you is more better to read and understand? For me it's the this file which has all the white spaces, because I can understand, this is a class and inside this class we have this method, main method, and within this main method we have this statement. So using proper indentation and spaces, we can have this readability, right? But if you just look at the other file, it is just like one below the other, so it is not that pleasant to read. So right, so that's the reason we use white spaces. And the other reason why we use white spaces, sometimes it is used as a separator, right? So we will see this in action. So let me save this file and run this. So I save this file as test.java. Now let me run this. Java C test.java. And as you can see, this class has not compiled, right? The reason is this class and room, they are separate tokens, right? So a class is a keyword and room is an identifier. So after we add a white space, and if we save and run this, our program should run properly. So let me save this and run this. Let us compile. So we have Java C room, test dot Java, and we don't have any compilation error. So now let us run this. So we have this class room, and as you can see, we have the output hello, the caffeinated program. All right.
Now let us move into the last part of our video, which is comments, right? So, but before we talk about comments, please don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out any notifications. All right. So now let us talk about comments. So a program can be documented by inserting comments at the relevant places in the source code. All right. So there are three types of comment to document a program. The first one is the single line comment. The second one is the multiple line comment, and the third one is the documentation comment. All right. And compiler simply ignores the comments. That is, it is not executed. All right. So we will look at the first two comment types in detail.
So now let us look at the single line comment. So a single line comment is used to comment only a single line of code. So we have this. This is a single line comment. All right. So let me save this and run this, and this line should not be executed. All right. So I've saved this. Now let me run this. So I've successfully compiled and executed, and as you can see, we don't have any compilation errors. And we can also use a single line comment just after the valid statement. So suppose we have this valid statement int I equals to 23, and after semicolon we can just add the single line comment and it will be excluded from the execution. So suppose I write system dot out dot print ln, and I write I, and I don't end with a semicolon, and since it is a comment, this should not be executed, and hence you won't get any compilation errors. So let me save this and run this. So I've saved this. Now let me run this. And as you can see, we have successfully compiled and executed it. All right. So when we want to comment multiple lines of code, we can use multiple line command. So we can write multiple line comments as this, forward slash followed by asterisk, and we can write this is a multiple line command, and you end this with a asterisk forward slash. So anything in between these two asterisk forward slash, they are not executed. All right. So let us save this and run this. So I've saved the file. Now let us run this. So as you can see, I've successfully compiled the program, and if I execute it, you see that I don't have any errors, right? So that is it for the multiple line commands. So that is it from the today's video. And if you have any problem, you can definitely comment below. And I will see you until next time.